Hey friends, it's Catherine here on November 19th, 2024. I wanted to pop on and share some information about how significant today is, sort of from an astrological perspective. Even before I drop in, I am sort of going to do a disclaimer that I am not an astrologist. And I rely on what I hear and see and read from a lot of other people who I've come to know and trust over the years. But I have certainly become more interested in the cycles and the movements of the sun and the moon and the planets and all other kinds of, cosmic beings and the influence that they bring, right? Particularly, and I've gotten interested in this particularly over the last few years. And as I come to understand this and pay more attention to it, whether it's the monthly cycle of a new moon and a full moon, or eclipses, or these big planetary changes when some of the larger outer planets are moving into a different house in a different sign, what that means for kind of what's coming up and what's happening. And as I said, it helps me make some sense of it as like, oh, that's why I've been experiencing or feeling or not doing X, Y, and Z. And I just love to share that kind of information because I know that if it's helpful for me, and this has been true on my spiritual path for, 30 years now, when things were happening that I didn't understand in the early days. And then I would read something or I would hear something and it would put it in a context that made sense to me. And that was really helpful for me. So I just like to be able to do that, offer that for anybody else out there who might benefit from hearing some of this information, to be able to put things that are happening in your life day to day, in your family, in your experiences, coming up in your relationships, in your job situation, in your relationship with money, whatever it might happen to be, to be able to say, oh, okay, this is what's going on a larger scale, and that's what's influencing what's coming up for me. So that being said, I'm going to jump in because today is a really important day. Today, Pluto, which um, is it even a planet anymore? I don't know. Somebody said it got downgraded, but I still call it a planet. It's way out there on the, kind of the furthest edges of our solar system. So it's one of those planets that has a very large cycle, right? It takes it a very long time to move around the Earth. And um, the larger planets tend to have more influence over larger things, right? Instead of the inner planets, which are more connected kind of to our day to day, maybe in our individual or personal energy and experiences. The planets that are further out, and therefore, if you think of the signs of the zodiac, they kind of go like this, right? So if you're an inner planet, you're kind of traveling here, or you're an outer planet and traveling out here, this is going to be a much longer journey, and you're going to have more time to impact that particular house in the zodiac that you're in. So Pluto is going to be, it's moving into Aquarius today at about 3:45 p.m. Eastern time. And Pluto is known as the planet of death and rebirth. It brings revolutionary change and ultimately resurrection. And it's beginning its movement into Aquarius today at 0 degrees Aquarius. Now, I didn't know what that meant, but I kept hearing that that was significant. So I did a little research on that, and I'll share some more about that in a few more minutes. But again, because it's an outer planet and it has a much sort of wider span to move through each house, Pluto is going to be in Aquarius for about the next 20 years. And actually, since 2023, March of 2023, it's mostly been stationed in Capricorn, but because of the elliptical orbit of Pluto, don't ask me the details. It's kind of been poking out every once in a while into Aquarius and then going back. So, for example, it was in Aquarius between March and June of 2023, and then went back into Capricorn. And then again in January 20th of 2024, until September of 2024, it was in Aquarius and then went back into Capricorn. And now today as it moves in at actually 3:29 p.m. Eastern, and it will stay for about 20 years until January of 2044. So, we've kind of had this getting a little heads up on what this might mean as it has popped into Aquarius. And we've seen some things happen in that time before it slid back into Capricorn. So, as I said, as an outer planet, Pluto has influence over larger sort of collective systems, institutions, and movements. And the energy of Pluto is kind of a disruptor. It tends to confront topics associated with each sign that they're in by uprooting whatever's under the surface, right? In the culture, that what might be called the cultural toxicity bubbling up underneath the surface. The surface may be starting to have some cracks in it, and there's all this Pluto influenced bubbling up to the surface. So because it is a disruptor, as I said, the planet of death and birth, revolutionary change and resurrection, it exposes the shadow realm, right? And it does this as a way of purging whatever is toxic and needs to be brought back into balance. It sort of shines the light on shit that's going on behind the scenes that we may sense but don't really know. And clearly, we've been seeing evidence of this, right? A lot has been being exposed over these last few years. So let me just um, drop back into Capricorn for a minute because, as I said, that's where Pluto has been for since 2008. So just to provide some context to how big this shift is going to be and where the focus is going to be. So Capricorn typically represents big business, the ruling class, government, and systemic order. A lot of constructs, mostly represented, in my words, by the failing patriarchy. Just saying. So we've seen, since 2008, depending on where you were, I mean, I was married with children, teenage children. And, I remember the financial crash of 2008. People who were our neighbors living in the suburbs, some really got hit hard when their savings, when their investments crashed, when the stock market crashed. So, and that happened in 2008 when Pluto was in Capricorn. So we've seen how the foundational structures of banking, the stock market, governments, corporations, and the authoritarian patriarchy have started to collapse over these last, what's it been, 16 years when Pluto was in Capricorn. So as some of the things that I was reading said, Pluto's legacy in Capricorn exposed, because remember, Pluto exposes sort of the dark side of big business, ruling class, government, systemic order, right? It's going to take us below the surface and shine the light on what's really out of balance there. And interestingly enough, 2008, wow, this is sort of not scripted. I just remember this. In 2008, I was in a group coaching training. It was a 5-day training, uh, teaching us how to take a particular model from a one-on-one coaching model into a group coaching model. And as part of that training, one of the days, a fellow by the name of Tim Kelly took us through some processes about getting out of our ego minds, dropping into our inner knowing, our intuition, our psychic ability, whatever you want to call it. He didn't use those words, but he talked about getting your figuring out where your North Star or your guiding light or your, the thing that you're here to do on the planet, to get that information from a trusted source, right? Typically what we might think of as um, someone or something in the non-physical realm, in the spiritual realm. So as part of that, he took us through a guided meditation. I'm sure many of you have been through similar guided meditations where you kind of go down a path and then maybe you enter a garden, right? And you find a place to sit or stand, and some um, some guide or master or angel or loved one or ancestor, right? Someone comes through with a message for you. Pretty common these days, but it wasn't so common for me back in the early, the 2000s. And so we're doing this meditation and we're asked, and I'm closing my eyes because that's what I do when I do these meditations. I'll try to keep them open. We're asked to call in a trusted source. And I don't know how I knew. Sometimes you just know, but you don't know how you know. I knew and felt with every cell in my body in that moment, Yeshua or Jesus and Mary Magdalene came to stand right behind me on either side. It was so real that I felt like if I turned around and touched that they would be there in the physical. It was an extremely powerful experience. And in this meditation, I will call it now a transmission because my whole body was vibrating. I was given my marching orders, which was to balance the masculine and feminine energy on the planet, to bring things back into equality, to anchor the archetype, the energy of the divine feminine, where she truly belonged in equal leadership, for maybe lack of a better word, equal standing. That's what I'll say, equal standing with the divine masculine, not the toxic masculine, the divine masculine. And there's a divine feminine and a toxic feminine. There's a divine masculine and a toxic masculine. So we're talking here about healing and bringing these divine aspects of the masculine and the feminine together in a balanced, cooperative, loving way. And I had no idea what that meant. Actually, at the time, I was like, balance the masculine and feminine, what the heck? Except I'd been getting similar messages for a while now. So it wasn't completely new to me. And they told me that in order to do that, I would have to balance the masculine and feminine energy within myself. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm a girl. Like, I grew up with, 6 brothers, but I'm in a female body. What do I have to balance? Well, it's a work in progress. And 11 years later, I have a much better idea about that. And I feel like I have done a lot of that work. but or however many years, 16 years ago. Um, and but this has been my guiding principle for all of these years from 2008, since they sort of gave me my marching orders, um, let me know clearly that it was inner work to begin with, and that they would be guiding my steps. You know, they basically said, we will show you where to walk, and we will, bring the words that you're to bring forward, but this is your journey. So anyway, bringing me that was when Pluto moved into Capricorn. I just put that together. So that's part of my story. And it's the work that I'm still doing and still trying to figure out, how do I live into that message and that mission. And I have to say, right after that meditation, we came out of the meditation, everybody left for lunch, and I sat in the room, tears streaming down my face, journaling, trying to write down everything that happened so I wouldn't forget it, because it was such an energetic experience. I was kind of afraid of losing it. So anyway, back to the scripted part of my message. So again, we've seen how Pluto in Capricorn has exposed these wounds of the toxic masculinity, certainly no more so than in the recent election here in the United States. This widening wealth gap, right? The sort of rise of the oligarchy. We've seen that in many countries, political corruption, and of course, the underlying but ever present energy of reality, not just energy, reality of racism, misogyny, anti-queer sentiment, right? All aspects of ultra-Christian patriarchal rule. We have certainly seen Pluto doing its work, exposing the underbelly of all of these systems over the last 16 years, preparing us for what's to come. Because remember, death and birth, revolution, and then resurrection, right? This is the journey of Pluto. So this particular placement of Pluto, again, I had to look this up because I am not an astrologer, is significant because it's happening in 0 degrees of Aquarius. And what the heck does that mean? Well, basically, it's an initiation period. So when a planet moves into the 0 degree placement in any sign, it's considered a critical point, because 0 degrees is associated with new beginnings, new potential, and basically the purest expression of that sign's energy. So specifically for Aquarius, this spotlight, if you will, the 0 degree like focus, is going to signify a strong movement toward innovation, independence, and unconventional thinking. Overall, a 0 degree placement in Aquarius emphasizes the potential for really impactful contributions to society, particularly as they relate to technology, social justice, and progressive ideas. So there's a lot going to be afoot in these last 20 years that are going to impact the planet and everybody on it for a long time beyond those 20 years. The rise of artificial intelligence, but balanced by people wanting to step into their sovereignty, into their authentic selves, to create a new humanity, a new world. Like, these things are going to be in flux with each other. So because Pluto represents death and birth, resurrection, evolutionary change, wherever it comes in, it unleashes kind of this cosmic force of power and alchemical change, right? It shines deep into the shadow to reveal hidden secrets. It exposes scandals, shadowy deals. As I said, all the stuff that's going on in the back room. So let's look at, because I found this fascinating. Let's look at what happened the last few times, maybe just a couple times, because I don't want this to be too long, but the last couple times that Pluto was in Aquarius. And again, remember, Pluto in Aquarius is about 20 years long. It takes about 240 to 50 years for Pluto to make a complete uh, transit, I guess you can call it, um, around the sun. So we're looking back at 1777, 1798. That's kind of the sort of the 21-year window, the last time Pluto was in Aquarius. And guess what happened? The American Revolution and the French Revolution, which, by the way, was started by women demanding lower prices for bread, and whoever the queen was, let them eat cake, right? So two revolutions, and there are other things, but I'm just kind of pointing at the highlights. Two revolutions happened or were in process, started, ended, whatever, during that 21-year cycle, 240 to 50 years ago. Before that, 1532 to 1553 was the time of the Protestant Reformation, where King Henry broke from the Roman Catholic Church, radically dismantling England's kind of devotion to this one doctrine, right? This one dogma established by the Church of England. And, if he, or established the Church of England, and if you didn't go along, basically, heads rolled. So uh, this really demonstrates that really tyrannical, uncompromising control aspect of Aquarius. During the same time, there were several firsts in printing that really changed the course of the world. It was the first time various religious set texts were printed in different languages. So it allowed for the spread of religion in a different way, or people to become more aware of different religion. The scientific revolution began in 1543 when Copernicus wrote on the revolutions of the heavenly spheres. And that was so controversial. He really was challenging the dominating thought of how the Earth and, the whole solar system worked at that time. And he was formally banned by the Vatican many years later, but that was really the start of it when his book got published. So clearly, Pluto and Aquarius can be quite revolutionary, can lead to a lot of upheaval and change in its wake. So again, with today, as Pluto moves into Aquarius at 0 degrees for the next 20 years, we know that it's going to ignite a new era, right? One that could radically redefine power structures and hopefully usher in a future where equality and freedom take center stage now that we're out of that Capricorn era of, power over and control. So it'll highlight the themes of Aquarius. Remember, 0 degrees is going to highlight whatever the themes of that particular house in the signs of the zodiac mean, and how these themes are going to be expressed in our individual exploration of who we are, our authentic selves, how we communicate, what role technology plays, right? And with all of our creativity, our communication, our humanitarian interests, we can really move away from these top-down hierarchies to a more collective, humanitarian, kind of grassroots lifestyle. And I remember reading about this years ago. I mean, who remembers the song The Age of Aquarius by the Fifth Dimension? I do. And here we are. It really predicted a future, right, where things were going to shift radically. And the other piece about that on a spiritual realm was becoming aware many, many years ago that sort of the gurus, the ones who were the big spiritual teachers, would in fact go away, fall out of grace, just, age out, whatever. And that the teachers, the leaders, if you will, were going to be much smaller, much more grassroots, and things were going to be not, again, even in the spiritual realm, not so hierarchical. And as I'm saying that, I'm also thinking about even as we move it deeper into this age of Aquarius, understanding that we are spiritual beings and we are equal. There's always been this, God, angel, ascended masters, angels, like sort of this hierarchy. And in my experience with them, they're like, well, not really. Like you are that too. You just chose to come into a human body for this particular experience. Your soul wanted the experience of being human to expand itself. But underneath your earth suit or, bag of bones, whatever you want to call it, is a soul that has every spiritual um, gift that the angels, the masters, the ascended ones, that they all have. So even again, this just popped into my mind. Even seeing this sort of spiritual hierarchy collapsing as we come to know ourselves as that and step into that. And I call this, sort of the alchemical practice of the heart, stepping more and more into the heart, the center, the cosmos, the center of our universe, where we access all of that knowledge and wisdom and information. So, anyway, with all our creativity, communication, humanitarian interests, the potential for moving into a less hierarchical, a more collective, grassroots, um, authentically connected lifestyle is possible. We know this is going to be a time of unexpected disruptions. We're seeing them already. It's crazy out there. Rebellion, revolution, mass awakening. That's good. And the continued dismantling of these old, outdated structures. And I know I've said this many times before, if you've been in my orbit, we're speaking about, cosmic things, so I'll use the word orbit. If you've been in my orbit over the last, 20 years or so, you'll know that I've talked about, there was a time when I was hearing that all of these systems were going to fail, all these structures were going to be dismantled, everything was going to collapse and fall apart, and that actually it would be a good thing, a necessary and good thing, so that a new world could be born. And I used to be like, how the heck is that going to happen? How can all of these systems fall apart? How will we be able to function? And in the middle of COVID, I had an aha moment. It's like, oh my goodness, we are seeing this in real time as systems fell apart, right? Kind of religious systems started to fall apart. People were not, I mean, that was pre-COVID, but all of the things that we saw come to a screeching halt, and everything that sort of had to be thought and refabricated, if you will, revamped during COVID so that we could continue to live and exist and have life and work and family and all of those things. So we're seeing it in real time. So on a more personal level, the next 20 years are really going to offer a lot of opportunity. As I said, we're shining the light on what's hidden in the shadow. So Pluto's influence can help you uncover maybe hidden truths in the world, but also within yourself. You know, I see clients, maybe not every day of the week anymore, but for over 30 years now, I've been seeing clients on an almost daily basis. And there's a lot of this work going on, where people are saying, no more. I'm not going to keep this family secret anymore. I'm not going to I'm not gonna stay in this pattern of hiding the truth or not asking questions or not rocking the boat or letting this kind of inappropriate behavior or abuse or traumatizing or gaslighting or whatever it's going to be. Hell no, it stops here. I am not going to do it any longer. So we're uncovering hidden truths. We're healing generational trauma because when you say hell no and you do your healing work, you literally heal your lineage and your line going forward. Every act of individual healing is an act of collective healing. And this is what we're engaged in. And then we establish a new foundation for living. Everything changes when we put our stake in the ground, when we say, I'm willing to do the work, I'm willing to pull the curtain back, I'm willing to look at the things I've not wanted to look at, or, it's been too traumatizing or too uncomfortable, or it'll shake up my family system, or my parents will never speak to me again, whatever the heck it is. This willingness, this profound, deep desire to do this will become stronger over these next 20 years. And then you get a chance to redefine yourself. Who am I? When I look at all those stories and realize they were just stories and I don't have to live by them anymore. I don't have to carry that belief system anymore. I don't have to think of myself as the one who is too much or too sensitive or not enough or, whatever it is, you can redefine your identity and separate yourself where it's appropriate, set boundaries where it's appropriate, and begin to live in greater alignment with what's true for you, what's coming from your inner guidance, what's coming from your connection to spirit, right? Embracing your authentic self, right? It sounds so cliche, but your authentic self is not the long history of stories that have been passed down through your family. They have influenced you all the way down to a cellular level. This is true. We can't deny that. We can't, right? However, they are not the truth of who you are as a spiritual being. They belong to the story of the ego self in this lifetime. And the more we release that, I'm sitting right here in front of my my Mary Magdalene deck. And this is from the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. And basically every card in this deck is about letting go of the story of the ego to make more room for the soul. We are both fully human and fully divine. And ultimately, we want that divinity to be leading the way and the human part to kind of get in line, right? And follow the direction of the soul, of the divine, rather than the other way around, where the ego is in the driver's seat and the soul or the divine self is, kind of getting dragged around. So this is what this is. This is your authentic self, your true divine spiritual being. And I can tell you, this isn't always easy work, right? I think it's getting easier as more people do it. I actually think that enough of us have been diving in and doing the heavy lifting so that as people maybe who are just stepping into it, yep, they're going to have to face whatever their family histories are. They're going to have to face their own personal history. They're going to have to look at some things that are uncomfortable. But honestly, it's not going to take 30 years in therapy. Right? This is not, you don't have to be in therapy or for the next 10 or 15 years of your life. It's happening much faster now. The alchemical, the healers such as myself, people who are processing energy, moving energy, connecting with the higher realms. This work can happen much more quickly, and it happens more quickly when it happens in a container where other people are holding the vibration for your highest good. We are each holding the vibration for our own highest good and for the highest good of everyone there. So this is another piece that's super important moving forward, building community. We've been saying we want to do this since we came out of COVID. It's beginning to happen more and more. I know it's happening more and more in my life. I'm getting out more. I'm doing in-person classes more. And I'm, building up some things within my own practice to shift away eventually from doing one-on-one work to really doing more group or community focused work, just as powerful, just a little bit different, because I got my marching orders in 2008, and it is my deep personal belief that more spiritually awake women focused on a more humanitarian, equitable, and compassionate world must be empowered to bring our deepest desires and our greatest gifts forward at this time. This is the time. This is the time that was predicted. Yeshua and Magdalene have said this energy started coming in around 2000, which is when I first started getting hints of it. And it is ramping up and ramping up and ramping up. We are the ones who will create a vision for a new way of being that's in harmony with each other, in harmony with the planet, and with all of the sentient beings on this planet. So buckle up, my friends. The ride's only going to get faster. The potential for disruption is going to be greater, but there are so many wonderful things to look forward to as we move more deeply into this age of Aquarius. I'm excited to be on this ride with you. It's time, I believe, for all of us to become even more committed to doing the personal healing work, to be using our grounding tools so that we can ride these waves without getting tossed around, right? Like a ship at sea. We really want to be anchored in. And we need to connect with community that can support you and us as we move through these changing times, but also as we bring our vibration, our frequency, our energy, our vision, our commitment, our desires, our intentions, right, to land in this field of possibility or potentiality that exists here for us. For myself, I've been doing the work for a long time. I've been helping a lot of other people do the work for a long time. It's been my joy and really my deep honor. And I'm committed to continuing to provide leadership, to continue to provide a container where we can all continue the healing work. We can learn and grow together. And as some of you already know, I'm in the process, as I said, of putting together some things, and it is a work in progress, and I don't want to predict when things are going to be ready to be birthed, but I am definitely in labor and moving things along so that we can even connect more deeply than we already have to support each other. And of course, I will let you know as the pieces are coming together. In the meantime, if you want to share thoughts with me about what you would like to see in a community, there's a link to a survey below. I would love for you to fill that out. I've just started to collect them and I'm looking at the results and I'm excited, and that's what's helping guide me and sort of figuring out with the help of spirit and dropping into my heart, my next steps. And I deeply desire to have them be in the highest possible alignment with what you desire and need and want support with going forward. So peace out for now. Celebrate this day. It is really going to be ushering in some big changes. And I'll be here to support you as I have been for the last 30 years. And I look forward to connecting with you again soon. All right. Bye now.